Today on the Enlightening Soul podcast, we are celebrating a very special occasion. Today is Shelley Young's 20th anniversary, working with her commitment, working with Trinity Esoterics and Archangel Gabriel. And so today we're turning the tables, and I will be honored to be your guest host as Shelley takes the role of the guest. Welcome, Shelley, to the podcast.
Thank you. It's different being on this side of it. I'm in the hot seat now.
Well, this is going to be fun because I have special questions that you don't know anything about yet. And
Good.
we'll just dive right in. So
Yeah.
a lot of people watching or listening will probably have a general idea of what you do because they're followers already.
Yeah.
But would you take a minute and share from your perspective what it is that you do?
Yes, I am a channel of Archangel Gabriel. Um, I started off as a light trance channel, and now I've become more of a conscious channel. So I basically receive messages from him and pass them on. They seem to help people a lot, which is awesome.
Well, and with the 20th anniversary, can you take us back 20 years ago? Because I think people would love to hear what happened to have you make the commitment to be on this journey.
Yeah, I had always been interested in spirituality. By the time I was, 20, I could meditate and read dice and cards and runes, and not much happened for the next 20 years in terms of anything really blowing open for me, even though I did meditate regularly. And 20 years ago, my life had tanked out in the most spectacular way. The proverbial dark night of the soul. And I mean, everything that could happen. I lost my job, my marriage fell apart very suddenly. It was, you have one of those days where everything that could go wrong did, but it was like 3 months. And what I didn't realize is I kept asking what else could happen. And I don't recommend that because you will find out what else can happen. I didn't know at the time. And so literally from the fetal position on the living room floor, I surrendered and I just said, God, I am not qualified to run my life. I was clinically depressed. I didn't know what else to do. And I said, you have to take the wheel. All I know is that I want to help people. And as if by magic, I got swept off to be in hypnosis school, which I had been a bartender for 20 years. I never in a million years thought that I could even qualify to be a hypnotherapist, but I did. And I learned, and I thought, well, this is great. I could do past life regression therapy, which would be kind of melding together this new helpful career with spirituality. And you have to remember 20 years ago, I was living up in Northern Ontario, and the internet certainly wasn't what it is today. And in Northern Ontario, there was the world's tiniest New Age section in the bookstore, like this big. And I got really frustrated because I knew that the way out of where I was through spirituality, but I wanted to be able to get my own information. So I started playing around with my cool new tool of hypnosis, and I would go into hypnosis and I would call on every being I'd ever heard of, be like, hello, anybody, somebody talk to me. And I always laugh and say that Gabriel took one for the team because this being showed up that I could hear who identified himself as Archangel Gabriel. And I didn't even know there was an Archangel Gabriel. So that was a really fun surprise. And that was the beginning. And I've been working with them ever since.
For people who are not spiritual, and they come up and say, hey, Shelley, nice to meet you. What do you do? What if you were to explain like what you just did to someone who wasn't spiritual, they might get that deer in the headlight look. What do you do when that happens? How do you explain it?
I always try and meet people where they are. So if I feel like they're really not spiritually minded at all, I'll usually just tell them I'm a hypnotherapist or a writer, which are both true statements. Most times I'll go with spiritual teacher, and that seems to be enough for people to go, oh, okay. A lot of times I don't mention mediumship at all, unless I know that they are like-minded and willing to let me be woo-woo and meet me in that space.
Well, it's interesting because you mentioned mediumship. Is there a difference? And if so, what is the difference between a medium and a channel?
Oh, that's a great question. Medium can receive messages from all kinds of beings. A lot of times we think of mediumship as connecting with past loved ones and bringing forth, messages from the other side. But mediumship can be connecting with anyone who's in spirit form. Channeling is actually allowing the being to speak through you. So literally inviting them in and giving them permission to speak through you, which is a whole different level of surrender.
So what is it like this? So you don't do the channeling, you do the mediumship. And what is that like for you?
No, I do.
What,
Yeah,
oh,
I
you
do
do the channeling?
channeling. Yeah,
So
I do.
do you, what are they like when you're doing it? What's the experience like for you on a personal level? I mean, we know you're receiving the information, but what happens with you?
I actually receive my information in different ways depending on what I'm doing. So if I'm writing one of my daily messages, usually my process for that would be, hey, Gabriel, what do the people need to know today? And then it's like an automatic writing where I'm receiving a stream of words or ideas that kind of come out my fingertips and I type it out. When I do private sessions with people, I will connect with Gabriel and other beings, but they use me as more of an in-between because they impress information upon me. They really use me as a tool for those sessions. So it'll be a whole lot of me hearing things and then passing it on, which would be kind of more mediumship. And then there's other times that I do the straight channeling where I just literally step back and allow it to come through. So when I do that, it's a little bit like being pushed back. And I don't mean pushed like I'm not getting hip checked into the boards like in hockey or anything like that. Um, I step back, he comes through. I hear it going by, but I do lose some of my psychic abilities. So if I were just meditating and somebody got up out of a chair and went to the washroom, I would be able to see who it was. When I'm channeling, I can't, which
Oh,
is very
okay.
interesting. Yeah. It feels very loving, very positive. I feel like somebody took a big handful of Vicks or peppermint and smeared it on my chest. So I get that really cool, minty, mentholated sensation on my chest. Usually when I channel, I have a great big smile on my face and it just feels yummy.
Is it, are you in a trance kind of setting then when you're doing the channeling, it's more of a trance?
Yeah, I put myself into a light trance state in order to do it.
Okay.
And really, I probably don't even have to do that at this point, but it's kind of my tried and true, so I stick to it.
So shifting gears just a little bit. You're I know that you are familiar with these because we've talked about them. Solar flares, uh, retrogrades, these things that we have just come to love so much. How does that affect you at a personal level?
Mhm.
Does it, how do you migrate through those to stay on track?
It depends on how the specific energy shift is affecting me, what I do. And you would think that they're all the same, but they're not. I got hit with a wave of something the other day and it made me feel immediately hungover, like I'd been out drinking all night. I was dehydrated. I had a headache. It felt like my head was in a clamp, and it just woof right over me. If I'm in an energy that's making me really, really thirsty, my go-to is Gatorade. And it's funny because I don't like to eat things with artificial flavor or color in it. So it seems like, having a purple drink is like really outside of the normal for me, but it works. And so I just trust, I always have an intention that I always take from it what supports me and release the rest in an easy, natural way. So that's one thing that I would do. If I'm really ungrounded, I'll wear my moccasins. There's something about wearing my moccasins that really help me get grounded. So part of it is intuitive. Getting into salt water, super helpful no matter what's going on with you, because it's just so cleansing and so supportive. So those are really kind of, again, it depends. I try my best to move with it and not be in a state of resistance with it. And a lot of it is just kind of tuning into how I feel and then just using my intuition. And what's worked before is always a really helpful thing to keep track of as well, because sometimes we don't remember. So having a little log of, certain things. I'm to the point now where I can kind of tell what's happened according to how I feel in the body, which is fun.
Oh, that's
Um,
good.
yeah, so, with enough paying attention to it, you become a real barometer of what's going on around you. Kind of like the new age version of the, oh, my knee hurts, it's gonna rain.
Yes, yes. I've heard you say a couple times talking about 2024 that this
Mhm,
is a year of unlike any others in
mhm.
a good way. So I'm curious, we're already a fourth of the way through the year. Uh, so how has the first quarter of the year been, and how do you see the rest of the year? Um, like some of the things that I know you shared with me, I wondered if you could share here too.
Sure. Gabriel often tells me that we don't even really get our feet underneath us in a new year until the spring equinox. So kind of the first few months, I think, is almost adjusting into the energy of a new year. This was a really big adjustment into 2024. I feel like there are a lot of potentials that are breaking through for people and about to break through. So a lot of discoveries, a lot of very fast forward movement for people where they haven't been able to get movement before. So that kind of comes with its own challenge when you're used to being kind of stuck and then you're suddenly in movement. That can be a little disconcerting. You're like, oh, wait, what's happening? um, and we're still shifting profoundly. I think we're going to be very different when we come out the other side of this eclipse season that we're just stepping into. And I think this is another year that we're going to notice there's a huge difference between the first half of the year and the second half of the year. So in many ways, I feel like we're still doing some energetic adjusting and refinement, and also getting more clear as new potentials and possibilities open up of what we would like to do. I think we're doing a lot of last minute healing stuff where we're, working through old wounds and old issues still. That's just wrapping up the past because we don't want to drag that into the new. So it's a busy time for sure.
So what do you think is the most important theme that is up in the collective right now?
Power, empowerment, power, what it is, what it isn't, what we want it to shift into looking, what's working, what's not, how to embody and get comfortable with our own power, trusting in our own wisdom. Everything power right now is up, definitely up for examination.
That could be so many things. Oh my gosh.
Like,
I'm going to come back to that a little bit later
okay,
on,
okay.
just to give a tease to those that are listening. What do you wish you knew now that you could have known before you started doing this work?
Boundaries, boundaries
Oh,
for
that's
sure.
good.
And I'm still not fantastic at boundaries, but I'm way better than I've ever been. Way, way better. That it's kind of family is kind of the last uncharted territory for me to master boundaries in. But I mean, I had this vision when I opened my shop. So I had a brick and mortar up in Canada when I first started doing this work, and I wanted it, I wanted people to be welcome and come and sit and stay all day, and and we would all be together in our spirituality, and it would be wonderful. And what I quickly figured out was there would be a lot of people who are not interested in doing their own work at all, who would show up for their daily dose of your energy. And so, yeah, if I would have, it's one of those things I never could have imagined without actually getting into the work. But if I was telling somebody else beforehand, learn about boundaries before you start the work, because it's way easier to have them in place when you start than to try and correct them once you've already been started.
Yeah, boundaries are big, such a big topic.
They
Yes.
are. And boundaries, I've also evolved in my boundaries in terms of how I look at them. So I went from having really poor boundaries because, I was in purpose and I was going to save the world and it didn't matter me. I was, that's how I started. And then I went into the, brick wall, barbed wire, moat with alligators form of boundaries. And now I've learned that boundaries are just the connection point that you can meet others in, where it's empowering for everyone involved. And that feels yummy. That feels inclusive to me, but still respectful and encouraging to everyone to be able to do their own work. So even what boundaries look like to me has really evolved over the years.
Yeah, it's interesting because I always took boundaries to be kind of a negative thing to keep people out. But in reality, the boundaries allow you to let in the
Yeah.
things that do serve the purpose. And it's in the beginning, it's real tricky to know the difference.
It is, yeah, for sure.
Okay, another little turn in the road here. We hear a lot about the new earth.
Mhm.
Someone who isn't maybe on this path would have no idea what that means. And so, what does it mean to you, and what do you hope to see with the
Oh, that is just such a great question. To me, the new earth is grounding more of the energies of heaven on earth. And I think those of us that are really in our embodiment process are leading the way in that, kind of trying to pioneer that. I like to think of it as the anchoring of peace and acceptance and unity consciousness. But more than that, I like to think of it as being a space of kindness. I would love to see an earth with no cruelty anymore, and no separation and no judgment. And I get that, it's not like we're stepping into that next Thursday, although I wish we were.
I know.
Um, I get that it's a process, but as each of us embody more peace in ourselves, we're actually assisting templates to help peace prevail on the planet. And eventually we know that the energy will accumulate to the point where it's the tipping point where anything other than peace just won't be supported. So that's how I see it. I see it as being peaceful and inclusive and accepting, and a place where it's safe for you to just be authentically you. That's what
Yeah,
I see.
that's right. I want to live on that earth.
Yeah.
That sounds very nice. I like
Yeah.
that. Okay, so now imagine yourself in a classroom of first graders.
Yeah.
What would be your message to them?
Don't let anyone tell you there's something wrong with you. Now, that's not to say that there's not things to grow and experience and improve on. but don't let anyone make you think that you are not beautiful and special and important. That's what I would tell them, because that's what I wish someone would have told me.
And then let's imagine that you're in front of a group of adults.
Mhm.
What would you say to them?
Don't let anyone tell you that you're not.
Am I
I would tell
thinking it's going to be a similar message?
I would tell them exactly the same thing, because we weren't raised that way, or very few of us were raised that way. And I think that our wounded inner children are wanting to receive that message. So my message would be exactly the same. The whole world is so invested in telling everybody how wrong they are, it seems right now. And so many of us, as we get on our spiritual journey, make that our job to find all the things that are wrong with us that need to be fixed. And that's not really what it's about. What it's about is moving back into the recognition of your own divine perfection as a piece of the whole, as a piece of source. And that doesn't mean that we don't still grow and evolve and know ourselves deeper and deeper in that way. But I think we do a lot better when we can celebrate and water what's really good about us, and then the rest of it just falls by the wayside. So the message would be the same for any age. Yeah.
Let's dive into some more fun, playful things. This is where I
Okay.
want to go. When
Yeah.
when you wake up in the morning, what is the first thing you do or the first thought that you have?
My favorite is being able to wake up and just lie there and be comfortable. I like that a lot. I do not like getting up early. I do not like getting up to an alarm. I just don't. It's one of the blessings of the work that I do, being my own boss. I'm naturally a person that stays up quite late. I'm a bit of a night owl. I'm not a morning person. So that's ideal that I can just wake up, and I like a quiet house when I wake up. I don't like any TV on. I don't put TV on ever during the day. I like quiet. And then I usually start thinking about, okay, what does my day hold? What do I have to do in terms of work and that kind of stuff? But if I can start off just with nice and peace and quiet and a good cup of coffee, I'm pretty golden. That's really all it takes these days.
What is on your bucket list?
Oh, my bucket list. I have some wacky things on my bucket list. The top of my bucket list is I want to go to Arkansas to the Crater of Diamonds, because it's a state park where you can dig for diamonds, and there's other naturally occurring gems there. And whatever you find, you keep. So the idea of being able to sort through and dig and receive gifts from Mother Earth really delights me. I want to go to Bonaventure Cemetery in Savannah because it's just beautiful. I want to take some photographs there because I love old oak trees dripping with Spanish moss and angel statues. So where else are you going to go for that? But I might actually be able to do that within the next few weeks. So I'm super excited about that. I'd like to take a cruise, but the most important thing really on my bucket list right now is getting a puppy.
Oh, I can't wait to hear how that comes along.
Yeah. I already have names picked and everything, so I'm just waiting for the right time to get the puppy.
Well, what's your favorite affirmation? And right now I'm thinking, I have a new puppy, but it might be something other than that.
Um, I really like using how does it get any better than this? That's a uh, access consciousness. Uh, it's a big part of their teachings, and I think it's just so brilliant in the sense that it keeps you with the intention of things getting better, but it also keeps you kind of curious and willing to expand and explore. I like that one a lot. It's really good. I like God is guiding me now. I also like that one. It helps me stay surrendered. If I'm trying to create more money for myself, something like I always have more than enough for all my wants and needs. There's plenty to spare and to share is one that I really like a lot. So those three are what I like to use.
What makes you laugh?
The Grinch. Uh, my daughter and I have loved the Grinch so much. So we've managed to incorporate Grinchisms into our regular life. So um I like a good comedy, but I like smart humor. Like I like more intelligent humor, plays on words and that kind of stuff. Um and I just really like I find ridiculous things to laugh at all the time, just being in the human condition. It's always something. You're like, oh, what am I doing? So I just like laughing at conditions. I really like to keep life light if I can.
What kind of things make you cry?
Oh God. Anything that's moving. So anything that moves me
Mhm.
makes me teary. Um, Anything that's about a daughter and a mother having to say goodbye gets me every time. Um, yeah, those will do it to me every time. Sick babies, because I did have, my daughter was sick when she was born. So any show that has like a sick child really gets me. Um, And animals like losing an animal is a big one for me too. So those are the ones that really get me. But I get moved very easily. If there's some magical alignment or beauty makes me tear up
Mhm.
too. Yeah. I'm pretty mushy.
I get that. I understand. I am in that same kind of space. I can read a
That's
card at a card store and it'll get me.
there was a craft commercial when I was pregnant that did me in every time I saw it, and I would just sob over this. I mean, but I am a sensitive person. I am, and I wear that badge proudly. There's nothing wrong with being sensitive. It's a superpower.
Yes. What is your biggest pet peeve?
Scratches.
Scratches.
Yeah. Like if I have a really nice table and it gets scratched, drives me crazy. Or if my car gets scratched, or the interior, you get that piano black and it's all nice and smooth, and then somebody drags something across it and it scratches it. Oh, scratches are the bane of my existence. Can't stand them.
Oh, I would have not thought of that. Now, every time I think of a scratch it or I see one, I'm going to think about you.
Scratches. They're not good. They're just not good for me.
What is your, or where is your favorite place here on Earth? I wanted to clarify, not places you might have traveled outside of Earth. Where here is your favorite place thus far?
There's a stretch of Englewood Beach here in Florida that I really love that feels there's just this one little stretch. I mean, all beach on the Gulf of Mexico is pretty awesome, but there's this little stretch that always makes my heart feel very expanded. I really like that a lot. Rosslyn Glen in Scotland, pure magic. Um, those two would probably be the top two favorite places I have right now.
What trait do you admire most in others?
Kindness.
Kindness. I like that. If you were given $1 million, what would you do?
Well, I'd pay off the house, pay off the bills. Then I think I would hire somebody full time to really help take my work to the next level. Um, that's probably what I would do. I would like to create a charity as well. I'm not sure exactly what that would look like. I would really like to create a charity for soldiers who have come back from war, because it's very difficult for them to find their purpose when they're done their tour. And, so many of them have been really traumatized as well. So just something really beautifully inclusive, spiritually based, to help them find a new purpose. I would really love to do that. And I'd also like to have some kind of a spiritually based rehab program as well. Um, a lot of addicts are very sensitive people, and they make wonderful light workers. They're amazing once they realize that there's so much more out there for them. So I would like to branch into that if I could.
Nice. That would be beautiful work.
Yeah.
I'll work on that $1 million for you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, get on that. Well, Mega Millions is almost $1 billion tonight. So if you're listening, I'll do good things.
So what's been the most pleasant surprise on your journey? Something you didn't expect and just delighted you?
The humor of mediumship, like the humor. I did not expect that. I thought it would be all very serious. I really expected it to be very serious and very sacred all the time. And it is sacred all the time. But I didn't realize that there could be humor and levity. I love when new things show up for me that I've been working with Gabriel, 20 years now. And just in the last 6 months, I've had new beings show up that I'm working with that I never could have imagined in a million years. So that makes it fun. But yeah, it's the lightness. It's, Gabriel pops in every once in a while and says things that just really make me laugh. Like, not long ago, I was just sitting here and he popped in and he said, I'm your wingman, and laughed and laughed. And I thought that was like the funniest thing I'd ever heard. So now I'm literally in the process of making some shirts that say Archangel Gabriel is my wingman. So it's like little things like that that they surprise and delight me.
What about the most challenging things that have happened that you didn't expect?
Being self-taught, I had a lot of experiences that I probably could have avoided had I had some kind of good instruction. I teach in my partnership with spirit course in, 5 classes, what it took me a couple years to figure out the hard way with some bumps and knocks. I find being in the energy of people that are deeply mourning really challenging, because I'm so empathic and I just can't help. Gosh, I remember this one gentleman, and this is really why that's not the type of mediumship I do typically. This one gentleman had traveled to visit me when I was up north, and his wife had passed away a while back, and she came through, and the love that she had for him, I sobbed. That poor man was there for my help, and he was asking me, "Are you okay?" I'm just not cut out for that kind of work. Because I just feel it so strongly. So yeah, it's not my forte. God bless the people that are able to do that work. It's a very specialty to have when it comes to spirituality, for sure.
Who has had the greatest effect on your life, not counting angels or spiritual helpers? I got to clarify that sometimes.
John Bergos has been a really big part of my life, in the sense that he found me and really gave me a platform for a lot of other people to find me. So I'll always be very, very grateful to John for that, because he really helped kind of up level what I do, and he had the faith in me And so I really appreciate that. If we're talking about like an author or somebody like that, Neil Donald Walsh, I just love the Conversation with God series. I think it really put a lot of pieces into place for me that I didn't have to figure out for myself. And I could very tangibly feel the energy that that book held. And I don't think that's ever happened to me with any other book. I could literally feel it, almost like there was light shining out of the book as I held it. So I think he's been very important on my path as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I had the pleasure of meeting him one
Oh,
time, and what I liked is that he was just to the point and direct. He didn't sugarcoat anything. And like one-on-one conversation, or when he was talking to the group, it was very nice. And I had a lot of respect for him as he was doing that. So I like,
another person that I'd really like to give props to is a gentleman named Mel Brand, who was up in Sudbury, where I'm from, in Northern Ontario. And he was a really interesting character in that he was a hard rock miner who became a channel. And back then there were maybe 10 or 12 channels in all of North America, so it was really different. So Mel was the one that really introduced me to the concept of channeling. And obviously without having that experience, would I even have thought it was something possible for me? So he really was the first one. He taught me how to meditate. So, I think he's had a huge impact on my life as well. He's passed over now. But yeah, I mean that he was really doing some very important work when you think that was way back, back in the 80s, long before my awakening even happened. So that was really interesting. Yeah.
now I want to circle back, like I mentioned that I would. You were talking a little bit about superpowers, and
Yes.
so I want to see if I can put this into a question that makes sense. So I want to ask you first what your superpower is, and tied into that question, also how we're so programmed to not talk about what our stuff is, as if we don't know what our own superpower is, and to claim it is sometimes looked down upon. And so this is
Mhm.
kind of like a twofold question there. So there you go. And what is your superpower?
I used to say patience. I used to say patience was my superpower. And I am a very patient person. Because I'm so patient, it's easier for me to flow. I think my patience and the divine combination of surrender, faith, flow, and trust that Gabriel teaches, I think that they both really helped each other. It was through being patient that I was able to embrace that more. And it was through embracing that it made me even more patient. So I would say patience is a big one. I'm going to say probably my sensitivity is my superpower. I would have to go with that. And I've just recently discovered this because I was always made to feel bad for being sensitive. And this is kind of like me coming out of the closet as a sensitive, where before I felt bad about it because I'd always heard from people, oh, you're too sensitive. I couldn't do the work that I do if I wasn't sensitive. It was a necessity in order for me to have the career that I have. So all the people that have been helped with Gabriel's words over the years, I never would have done if I would have shut that down based on other people's opinions. And so I now changed my mind to I'm not too sensitive, and maybe other people just aren't sensitive enough. And that's what I'm rolling with. So I'm giving myself full permission to be me, which is a sensitive being.
And the other part of that question, how do we help people know that it's okay to claim their superpower? Because I guarantee that, like, deep inside, everyone knows what it is. They know, even, and sometimes and I'm curious about what your experience is with this too. The thing that we are often most criticized about is tied into our superpower.
Yeah, absolutely it is. That's one of the reasons why I would never tell a child to make themselves be wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Because if we never had that shut down, it wouldn't have taken me until I was 40 to find the thing that I was here to do. I think we always know where your interest is, what you've always been drawn to. If you had a magic wand, what would you do? Or if you didn't know a single person on the planet, what would you do? There was no one to tell you that you couldn't. What would you do? And I think it takes a lot of courage. I think there's so many sensitive people that love to write or play music or make beautiful art who have been told you can't make a living at that.
Mhm.
You have to choose something more 3D. I think
Oh,
that's a shame
yeah.
because I think that all of that is channeled. I think that all of that inspiration is channeled. So you came onto the planet with the interests and traits and strengths that you have because that is your gift.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have it if you weren't meant to share it. And
Yeah.
it's as simple as that. And I think as we come home to ourselves, which is what the whole enlightenment process is, we give ourselves more permission to follow those callings where our soul calls us to go.
So would you change anything about your path in the past 20 years?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I've made some mistakes. I mean, are there any such thing as a mistake? I've made some rookie mistakes for sure along the way. I definitely didn't love myself enough. That's something that I wish that I would have tackled. I would have saved myself a lot of pain and heartache if I would have learned how to honor myself more. That would have been nice. Um, but I mean, really, I don't spend a lot of time in regret because everything is part of who I am today. And, you know,
And
it all served a purpose in one way or another.
now, if you weren't, if for some reason you didn't make that choice, that commitment 20 years ago,
Mhm.
what do you think you would be doing today?
Oh God, I'd like to think I wouldn't still be
I
bartending.
know I was going to ask, would you still be bartending?
Oh, I hope not. Um, Not that bartending was bad. It actually really served me. It gave me a lot of people skills that I would never have developed without it. So even that was part of what led me to what I do today for sure. I would probably be in doing some kind of art, is my guess. Probably some kind of art. Yeah. Writing, but more like maybe fiction rather than, spiritual stuff.
Imagine you're at your house and you hear a knock on your door and you go and open the door and Jesus is standing there. And and you know who it is right away, and you hug and say hellos and you invite him in to have a cup of tea or coffee or wine, who knows what he likes. uh, and you sit down together for a conversation. What would be the first thing you would ask him, and what would be the real question you would want to ask him?
Oh gosh. Well, it wouldn't be the first thing I would ask him, it would be the first thing I'd say to him.
Okay.
So when I first connected with Jesus through hypnosis years and years and years ago, I had a vision. I was doing some meditation slash hypnosis, which is really kind of interchangeable for me. And I had this vision of Jesus sitting at the top of these marble steps. And so I went slinking up like I'm not worthy and, would sit at his feet And, because it's Jesus. And, to me, I had to sit at his feet. And he would always say, come sit next to me. And I argued with him for a very long time. No, I can't. And he'd always be, sit next to me. And so I think what I would do is point out that I was now willing to sit next to him. It's probably the first thing that I would do. I had the real question that I would ask him was, I had a experience years ago now, where it was almost like a glimpse of a past life. And I was looking at Jesus's face. He was lying down, like he had just woken up. It felt like I was in a caravan or something, of people that traveled together. And I remember looking down at his face, and he was an older man. So he was more, like, I would say, in his 50s, mid 50s, maybe. He would just looked older, and I know what I saw. I know what I saw. And so that's always made me question the resurrection.
Oh.
So I feel, based on what I saw, that it's so funny that we're talking about this so close to Easter, that the resurrection was actually a time that he moved out of those trials and tribulations and likely walked the earth peacefully, and didn't die on the cross. That's what I feel, but I would like to confirm that straight from him. So that's the question that I would ask. But I know what I saw, and it's always made me question the story. Yeah.
Wow. I like that. Yeah. So when you do ask him, when he does come knocking at your door, let me know what he says.
I will.
What do you want to be remembered for?
Oh, I want to be remembered for being kind when people weren't, for having integrity, and for wanting to make a difference. Those are the things that I would like to be remembered for caring. Yeah.
And as we bring this to a close, what is the one thing that you would like to share with everyone? The one message.
The one quote that I really love that Gabriel's been using lately is, allow yourself to be more you than you've ever been before.
Oh, I like that.
And that's really that's the theme of 2024 moving forward. We've been working so hard to let go of all of these stories that kept us down and constrained and small. And now that we're letting go of all of those things, be more you than you've ever been before, I think just wraps it up, because that's what the world needs, more of you being you. So that's my favorite thing right now. That's my favorite Gabrielism that I'm trying to live with, live by. So that's what I would advise. Be more you than you've ever been before. And you don't have to do anything other than that.
What a great message to end this podcast with. Thank you so much, Shelley, for being brave enough to turn the tables as we celebrate with you.
Thank you so much for being willing to assume the role of guest host. I'm so grateful. I would love to take this opportunity to thank the people. I have people that have been following my work right from the very beginning. I have people that I still have private sessions with that I met in the early days, and we still connect, and they've become such heart friends. For all of the people that have supported our work and shared our messages and encouraged us, I am so grateful, because without you, I wouldn't have a purpose. So thank you.
And for those of you who are listeners to the podcast and you like what you hear, there's so much more. I know behind the scenes, there's so many good interviews that Shelley has coming up. So be sure to follow the podcast so that you are sure to catch each and every one of those. And thank you again, Shelley. Happy 20th anniversary.
Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.